Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event. Fight fans worldwide, you've tuned into the #1 undisputed boxing podcast today. This is the Boxing Breakdown. Now, your heavy-handed, hard-hitting host, Mark Roxey.
Yo, what's up, people? Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you guys here today. Super excited for today's show. It's gonna be off the chain. I'm your host, Mark Roxey, and this is the Boxing Breakdown. And so I just, the podcast, I want to just tell you a little bit about what this podcast is about. This podcast was really designed, it was my brainchild. I wanted to create a cast that was really informative and was able to communicate to the fans and friends of fighters and managers and promoters, and really have a place to share stories and to share information that's going to help the greater boxing community grow and understand one another a little bit more, and also have the fans understand what the sport is really about and what goes into the sport. So that's what this podcast is really about, and it really is out there to benefit everyone. I'm doing this show because I want to bridge the gap and create communication with everyone out there. So if you like this show and you are enjoying the podcast and all of the different host of characters we've had on this show, please consider making a contribution. You can go to www.patreon.com/theboxingbreakdown and make a small contribution. It could be $1, it could be $10, it could be $100, it could be $1,000. Whatever you want to contribute will help us to keep the show going and really help us bring these absolutely incredible guests to you. So I do want to just start the show by saying I cannot believe what just came out in the news. Jarrell Big Baby Miller tests positive again. Again, people, listen, this is not the first time this has happened. I really don't know what's going on with him. I really don't. He's done it again, you know. He's a heavyweight. If listeners out there don't know who Jarrell Big Baby Miller is, he's actually a heavyweight fighter, super talented. He's tested positive again for the banned substance. You know, I'm sure they're going to get to the bottom of exactly what happened, but again, it's PEDs, you know. So that's unfortunate, and I don't really have too much to say about that, except that it's unfortunate and it happened. A lot of the big fights that were in Jarrell Big Baby Miller's future may not happen. I don't know where we go from here, but it doesn't look good. So let's switch topics. Let's switch gears. Boom, into first gear. Today, I have on the program the 2017-18 Promoter of the Year, Philadelphia Promoter of the Year, Mr. Marshall Kauffman of King's Promotions. And Marshall and his outfit, basically he started in 1995. He opened King's Gym in Reading, Pennsylvania. And that was basically a way for him to connect with youngsters and get them off the streets. He really wanted to create a place where these young people could come and be involved in something a little more positive. The name King stands for Kids in Need of Guidance. People, don't ever forget that. You know, a lot of people think it's like Don King, or there's some other reason why he has this name, King's Promotions. Well, Now you know. You heard it here on the Boxing Breakdown. Kids in need of guidance. We need more men like Marshall out there doing this kind of work. Marshall spent years using the sport of boxing as a way for both his professionals and amateurs to feel good about themselves. He's committed, right, to helping them build self-confidence and really a sense of pride for what they're doing. This is the foundation and the identity behind King's Promotions. So the actual promotional company was founded by Marshall as well, and it resides in Reading, PA. Marshall is a world-renowned trainer, manager, promoter, and matchmaker with over 40 years of experience in the boxing business. That's longer than a lot of you guys out there listening have been alive. 40 years he's been in the boxing business. Since starting King's Promotions in 1995, the company has promoted over 120 events in the United States. And with its primary location, the place that they work is primarily Philadelphia, Allentown, Reading. That's his geography, but King's Promotions events have been televised across the world. King's Promotions has partnered with Showtime, HBO, ESPN, Fox, FS1, Spike TV, and Telemundo. In 2015, Marshall was awarded the Promoter of the Year by the Boxing Writers of America and was named Promoter of the Year in Philadelphia in 2017 and again in 2018. So I want to take a moment, sit back, y'all, relax, strap it in, because you're going to buckle up, because this is going to be an outstanding show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Boxing Breakdown, Marshall Kauffman. Hello, sir. Mr. Marshall Kauffman, welcome to the Boxing Breakdown.
Hey, Mark, how are you doing?
Oh, man, I'm great. I'm even more great now that I got you on the phone. I just wanted to say it's been forever since I've seen you. I think the last time I saw you was in November.
No, actually, it was December in Harrisburg.
That's right. It
was December in Harrisburg, December 14th for the exact date, when you had Britain Hart fight on the card.
What? You pegged that one. Yeah, but it feels like forever. I mean, it really does.
Yeah, it does. Well, I think that's the case with everybody in boxing right now. Everything feels like forever. I'm getting numerous calls from boxers I have under contract that wonder when they're going to fight again. They see things are opening up, but they're really not opening up to that level yet. It's mostly just the TV fights that are opening up, or fights in states that have other mandatories or and whatnot. So it's I think we still have a long journey ahead of us.
No, I think you said that perfectly, Marshall, because one of the things that a lot of the fighters don't really understand is that, and it's not, it's just they're contracted up, right? They don't understand that, you need audiences to really produce great shows. And that it's difficult if you're not on television. And even the television stuff seems to be, slow going and really complicated. And it's not necessarily going to work. And I think you make that point clear. I get that completely.
Correct. Yeah. Because you need revenue, and even the people who are doing the TV fights, the ESPN, the Top Ranks, the PBCs, and even Matchroom, they've been going back and forth. The purses are cut in half.
Yeah, I know.
Purses are cut in half, and as a boxer, you have to make a choice on whether saying, okay, well, I still need to pay bills, and I'll take the half, or I just don't fight. Period.
Right. Yeah, and it's that's a very real predicament that the fighters are in. But, you know, the thing is that the promoter's in that predicament. Everybody, you're in the same predicament. I mean, you got to decide, well, do I try to do a fight? Do I try to do something and for half? Am I going to lose money? Am I going to lose money? I mean, it's hard enough, you know, to make fights, to make things happen and have them be super successful is not an easy proposition. And so then, you know, the point is that we're really all in the same, we're all in it together, you know, and fighters do have to reevaluate what is reasonable, you know, given the current circumstances for sure, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh, most definitely. But, you know, some do understand and some don't, you know? I think that's what we're up against, from a promotional standpoint. Some fighters do understand, what we're up against and some don't, you know, some, get to the point where they just unfortunately become selfish and say, well, I deserve this much money and that's all there is. And I that's what I need to get. And then you have to say to them, well, then if that's the case, you have to sit, you know, because you're not fighting then.
For sure. And, you know, for the fans out there.
And the pandemic itself protects me, the promoter, from that itself, you know, like, because, you know, if you can't, it's not like I'm not providing because I just choose not to. I'm not providing.
You can't. You can't.
Because I can't.
Yeah. And you can't. You just, I mean, you know, first of all, acts of God and acts of government, you know, open up a completely new trajectory of law. And just, I mean, this is like unprecedented. So if anybody doesn't get that, then, you know, I don't know what to say, but it really is.
I agree.
I sympathize with you, and I definitely have my support because, you know, trying to do what you're doing is difficult enough in the best circumstances. And then on top of it, having, you know, the people that you're working with primarily on your team, you know, that don't necessarily get it.
Right, Mark, you can look at other promoters that are quote unquote on my level, like the Lou DiBellas, the Star Boxing, the Main Events, the people. And when I use that, when I use that analogy, it's more so I should really say it's the promoters that don't have TV revenue.
Right.
And so if it's not PBC, if it's not Top Rank, and if it's not Matchroom, everybody else falls underneath that category that they just can't provide a fight for their fighters. They just can't.
That's right.
You know, and so everyone is in the same boat. It really is, and so that's what we're faced with.
Yeah, and the fans are in the same boat too. They're in it with us too because they want boxing. Everybody wants boxing. It's just not, you know, this is not the current. The current situation just doesn't lend itself to making that happen. So I get that. And, you know, Marshall, I've always wanted to know, right? How did you get your start in boxing, period? Like, how did that happen?
Okay. In 1985, was my first start in boxing. I should even go back further. Was when I started boxing myself. My uncle had a boxing gym, and so I took in, which was in 1982, 83. My uncle had a boxing gym, and so I went in and I started boxing myself. And so I fell in love with the sport, and so you know, it's something I always wanted to do. And I used to box. I had a couple amateur fights, and I was going to turn pro, and that pro fight fell through as I prepared for it and whatnot. And so I ended up just doing an exhibition that day.
Wow.
So I really never had a pro fight that day. It was on a pro card, but it became an exhibition with me and another guy.
Wow.
That we ended up doing on that card back in it was either 82 or 83. I have to look at the date.
Wow.
And then and then I ended up having, it might have even been later. I really got to look at the date. You know, as you move on in life, you forget some dates. And so that's how I got my start in boxing. I was boxing, and then fell in love with the sport, of course. And then I took in got out of it for a while. I would still work out. I would do things here and there. And then I thought, okay, I want to get back into it. And then I thought, I'm going to get back into it. And I had a friend of mine who was a professional boxer who boxed for my uncle at the time, and we all trained in the same gym. And so I went on to start being his trainer and to help him. And he was in the same situation. Fight fell out because my uncle and them, as they came up in their as they were doing their boxing career, he did it as a part-time business, and they basically waited around for someone to call them to put their fighters in a fight.
Wow.
And I took on the concept that I'm not going to wait around for someone to put my fighter in a fight. I'm going to actually just do a fight. And so in 1994, this was right in about 1994, was August 21st of 1994. I did my first professional show, and I put my fighter on who wanted to fight. His name was Lenny Bainbridge, and he was 7-1 at the time, and I got him to 8-1, and then he basically knew the struggles that was involved in boxing, and then he went on to just work his job and didn't box anymore after that. And then my career continued to go on because I felt the adrenaline, I felt the rush, I felt I don't want to say the love, but I felt that desire to want to do another show. Even though I lost money on it, I felt that hunger. It's almost like being at the crap tables or something. You roll the dice and you lose, and it's like, hold on, I got to try this again. and so that's what it became for me. And that's when, since then, I've done 150 shows and have had some great experiences with training different fighters, training former world champions. Took Kermit Cintron to a world championship, and I took and used my boxing promotions in Reading, Pennsylvania, as a way to keep my fighters that I managed and trained, to keep them busy in that time. And then, they were prepared for fights, and I got fortunate with having Kermit Cintron who actually became a future star and became a world champion. And then I had my son, who was number one in the country as an amateur. And so I traveled that circuit as well. And I went on to train Hasim Rahman, who was the former heavyweight champion of the world. So I had that experience with him, and Rob Calloway and Tarvis Sims. So I got involved with some serious fighters and just made a name for myself with the hard work and the time I put into it. And I was blessed through it all. And then as years went on, I got in touch with Sylvia Brown, who is Al Heyman's right-hand woman, I should say. Her husband contacted me about possibly doing some shows for Al Heyman. And so one thing led to another, and I did some shows for Al Heyman.
Amazing.
And I did a lot of shows for Al Heyman. So it all worked out, and that's pretty much what brings me to where I'm at today.
It's just incredible. It's just an incredible story, to hear. Thank you for sharing it too, because I think the listeners and the people out there in boxing world really, like, your story is so powerful. And the fact that, you just started out helping kids, trying to create a place for people to come and box, and to know that you've been able to do such an amazing thing all these years is, that's got to be powerful for the listeners out there that are thinking about, how they're going to matriculate through the sport, or even, if they don't know that there's like real people behind these boxing promotions. There are real people who have families and kids and have to put food on the table. And like they you hear the fans talking about the sport as if, people don't exist. You know,
right.
It's
and one of the things, Mark, that of course drew me to the sport was the competition of it. But the other thing was, once I started training fighters, and I opened up my own gym in 1985, which is King's Gym, which stands for Kids in Need of Guidance. I opened it up just for that purpose, to get inner city kids off the streets. And one thing led to another, and I had the pleasure of having some fighters that I still stay in contact with today from 1985.
Wow.
A young man who's older now, of course, named Dirk Weaver, another one named Jimmy Rivera. Those two in particular were special for me. They're all special, but those two stand out because they did other things besides. They didn't have the background just coming off the streets and going into boxing. They had college. Dirk Weaver was in college. Had his college degree. Jimmy Rivera did 4 years in the Army. So they both had values and morals and something positive behind them that they weren't boxing because it was a way for them to get out of the city. Right. They weren't boxing for them to find a way to provide for their family. They were boxing for the love of the sport.
Yes.
And they did it. They did it for the love of the sport. And to this day, we still stay in contact. They both are very successful in their journeys outside of the ring, which of course they're not in the ring anymore, but they've good family men. And so that to me meant more than someone who went on to win the Golden Gloves and someone who went on to become a professional. And those are stories that I always love to talk about. Those two in particular, even more than Kermit Cintron, taking Kermit from scratch and taking him to a world title.
Right.
And later on, Kermit came on, and Kermit, like I said, I took Kermit from scratch and took him, put a pair of gloves on him, and took him through his amateur program.
Right.
And then we parted ways on because he couldn't get up to Reading for a while, because Kermit was originally from Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Right.
Going to school. He was, not that he was originally from there, he was originally from Bucks County, but Puerto Rico, then Bucks County, but he was going to school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And what had happened was he couldn't get up to Reading anymore to train because he had no transportation.
Right.
And so I said, look, just train down there. And so we've always stayed in contact. And then once Terry Nye turned him pro, which I didn't want him to turn him pro at the time, Kermit would contact me. I said, Kermit, just wait a little bit longer, get some more experience. Well, long story short, Terry Nye turned him pro. After his second pro fight, he wanted to come back to me. And I said to him, I said, look, no problem. Just talk to Terry Nye, let him know what's going on. I said, as a man, it's the right thing to do. And he went to Terry, told Terry, and Terry flipped out and kicked him out of his gym. And so then Kermit came back to me, and we had a success story then,
right.
And took him to a world championship in 4 years. I mean, in total 4.5 years when you think about it, because he had hand surgery, which he was off for a little bit for that. So it's an impressive story.
It's an incredible story.
Because he was a very impressive athlete as well. So it really says a lot about him. And we were fortunate. We got signed with the promoter in Main Events. So we went on from there. And in that time, I continued to train different fighters. And, of course, I had like my son Travis, who at that time was an amateur yet and became number one in the country as an amateur. And then he decided to turn pro in 2006. At the same time when Kermit and I were parting ways.
Right.
And so it's just, the train continues to go, you know?
Yeah, no, that's, I remember Terry Nye's gym up in Lancaster. I'd been there a bunch of times back when he was training there, when, Kermit Cintron was there. So I remember that it wasn't a little gym, but it certainly had character. It had a certain character to it.
Right.
So I definitely remember that. And So out of all the years that you've been promoting and you've been involved in boxing, what was, I know the listeners will want to know, what was one of the,
Oh, you're making me sound old, Mark.
Nah,
For saying all the years.
well, you have, etched in stone that you've been involved for almost your entire life. So that's what I mean by that. But what was the craziest thing that ever happened? What was like something crazy that people would just not believe happened?
There's a number of things. I don't know if there's a number of crazy things that took place from sending Travis off to Marquette, Michigan to be part of the Olympic program, and then him coming home, to Kermit Cintron and I and Joe Pastor at the time driving down to Virginia to go get Kermit a fight in Virginia to keep him busy, and on the way back we get stuck in the medium of the highway because Joe tried to make a U-turn and it's raining. And his Mercedes gets stuck in the middle of the highway. And so, I mean, there's stories that you can think of to, me being in Rochester, New York with Hasim Rahman, taking Travis to his very first fight on national TV and getting a call that I'm fired because I was out there with Travis and not there with Rock. And so there's stories that can go on and on and on. I think one day maybe I should do a Teddy Atlas and write a book.
Oh, you have to do that, Marshall.
I do have some interesting stories, and unfortunately, when you write a book, sometimes you have to put people on blast. And
that's right.
It's one of those things. But I had a very, of course, two of the fighters that I've spent the most time with were, of course, Travis and Kermit. They were the two of the longest that I've had the most time with, and also the most success as well. So there was a number of interesting stories to bring to the table. And
what about the best night? Tell me the best night you ever had as a promoter, manager, trainer, fighter, whatever. Best night you've ever had.
Wow. Kermit Cintron beating Teddy Reed has to be on HBO. Has to be one of them. The other one was when Travis was an amateur and he won the Jose Aponte tournament in Puerto Rico. So those two stand out bigger than anything else. From a promotional standpoint, the fight that I did in Reading, Pennsylvania stands out when we had Robert Easter going up against Richard Comey. That was a very special night as well. So, there's a number of them, and I wish I knew somebody that was interested in writing a book, because I'd love to sit down and go over it. I'd have to sharpen my mind up a little bit to remember everything, because there's a lot in there. I'd have to get a hard drive I'd have to get a hard drive to keep it all memorized,
Well, it's a great thing. Maybe a little recorder, and you just like jot down your memories in the recorder and keep recordings of them, because certainly you have, you have stories to tell, my friend. There's tons of them.
There's a lot of good times, and there were some bad times along the way, because I don't think in anything in life, good, it's not just all good. I mean, I think the good things come out from having some bad experiences.
Oh, so, that's for sure. That's there was plenty of those, believe me. There's plenty of them.
Far too many
to go around for all of us.
Right.
So, most people on the outside of boxing, other than watching it, they can't really appreciate what goes into being a boxing promoter or what it goes into putting a show on as a matchmaker. What's the most difficult part of being a promoter when you're on the ground? Like really, like in the ground, on the trenches, what's the number one thing that just makes it, a challenge?
Well, it's all a challenge, but selling sponsorships
Right.
is a challenge because people don't realize that you need them. The other thing is ticket sales, getting people to believe in what you're promoting, and then matchmaking, and putting on quality matches so that the fans are that excited about that they come back.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that's what a balancing act that is in the state of boxing now, because you want to make great fights, but you have, certain investments that require you to really think about it clearly. It's a complicated factor. It's a complicated place to have to work. When you have to make, and the fans, you're only as good as your last fight, right? The fans remember what you did last.
Yep.
So,
and now we're going to have a new challenge with the COVID-19 testing.
Because the others weren't enough, right? The other challenges weren't enough.
Yeah, exactly. And you're absolutely right.
So, all right. So, let me see if you can answer this one. I'm really interested to hear the answer to this. What or who, not what? Who is one of your favorite fighters to promote and why?
Favorite fighters to promote
and why?
That's a tough one. Right now, today, I'm going to say, Jonathan Rodriguez falls into that category because he's a young kid. I love seeing the growth of a young man grow, and not only that, he his manager/father is very easy to work with.
Yes,
and he sells a ton of tickets. That makes life easy in that aspect of it.
Yes,
from the aspect of dealing with a fighter that would fight anybody, and has been very easy to work with, would be Michael Fox.
Yes,
and his whole team with his father, Troy Fox. They've been very easy to work with from day one. And now he's at the point now where he wants to reap his benefits, and just as it was time for him to start really making some real good money, COVID-19 hit. So
right.
I would say Jonathan Rodriguez, Michael Fox are two very they make things a lot easier to work with. And then there's Raisa Lee, who will fight anybody as well.
Right.
And when, as a promoter, when you offer a fighter a fight, and you have that assurance, knowing that the only thing that might stop them from wanting to take the fight is how much money they're getting,
right?
Because that's part of it, no matter what. Those two or three guys were really they've been the most easiest to work with.
Yeah, and I just want to comment on that because, Mike Fox, right? Michael Fox is known as the professor, right?
Correct.
And I heard one of your podcasts, your video live casts, and I was just really impressed by his boxing IQ and his knowledge of the past and history. And I was really impressed by that. I don't know if you remember me I was actually on the cast, which actually was on Facebook. For those of listeners out there, Marshall and his partner, Andrew Foy, they hold a podcast. I believe it's once a week. And we'll be back right after these messages. Breakdown listeners, I sure hope you're enjoying this podcast today. Please be sure to share it with your friends and family. Download and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and anywhere downloads are offered. Please take a moment, if you enjoy this podcast, and consider making a small donation at patreon.com/Theboxingbreakdown. And now, back to our broadcast. Yeah, so, Marshall, so anyway, I heard that, I mean, I heard from the boxing community, I saw some of your posts that you and your son both had COVID-19. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, it's I mean, it was an attack, like a flu. You know, but I feel fine. I really do.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
I know. I just saw Al Heyman called me this morning just to ask how Travis was feeling because he saw that the fighter, not the fighter, the basketball player who first tested positive for it, Rudy Gobert, I believe his name is. He is still feeling effects from it.
Wow.
You know, and so, but you know, I'm fine. I feel I feel as normal as I can possibly feel for age 57.
So I'm so glad. Thank the Lord that you guys are okay. And I wonder what kind of based upon that, right? How does that weigh into your decision and your outlook on boxing within the next couple of months? You know, knowing that if it can happen to you, it could happen to anybody, right?
Yeah, I personally, I've had a lot of discussions in regards to this with mostly with Andrew Foy,
right?
My partner, and we both, and you know, I listen to what Andrew says about it because he's very keen and very smart on studies of what can go on with the body on that, and Andrew believes that it's just a flu, and he doesn't feel as though it truly affects the young athletes that are in shape the way it would affect a 70-year-old that's not in shape and has pre-existing conditions.
Right.
So with that being said, like he feels as though that we should be able to resume back to boxing even sooner is what his feeling is. And I selfishly feel the same way, of course. But, you know, when you're dealing with the medical profession, you're dealing with the health department, you know, there's a lot that goes into it. You know, I mean, you see how every day, not every day as much now, but they're having talked about COVID-19. And everything's about COVID-19. You know, this deadly virus, you know, and is it deadly? Of course it is, but I don't think it's as deadly to the younger individuals as what it is to someone that's older and has pre-existing conditions.
Right. No, for sure. I mean, and that's you know, the younger fighters certainly, you know, with the young people testing positive for it but showing no symptoms, it's quite miraculous how this is all going down. And then, you know, people in our age range, you know, we have to worry. You know, we really have to be super vigilant.
I had a personal friend, which you met December 14th, Alicia Baumgartner's trainer.
Oh yeah.
Ali, who died from COVID-19. Now, I don't know what Ali's pre-existing conditions were, or if any, but, you know, Ali was 59.
Right.
So, which is still considered young in today's age. You know what I mean? So,
for sure.
It did attack him. And I haven't read as many studies on there on if it's attacking anybody else, but I did see a study the other day that some of the cases that there's been a spike in the cases, but they've been in people 49 and under. So the hospitalization isn't nearly as high.
Right.
So I think we're going to get through this, but you know, it's like I try to explain to people, and I can say that now because I went through the virus, I went through the sickness, I went through. It's almost like, you know, they confine us all in a box, and then they, because the virus is outside of the box, and then they start to slowly open up that box. And I think you're going to start to see cases happening You're going to start to see those people coming out of the box getting sick.
Right.
And I think that's what's happening now.
Florida.
There's, in Florida and Texas, they've opened things up, and then with the protesting and the rioting, and now the cases are taking place. People are testing positive for it because it opened back up. The virus isn't just going to go away.
Right.
It's in there, but we all have to get. Not we all, but I think we need to get it in order to get so that we become immune to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
herd immunity.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what has to happen.
I would be remiss.
I don't think you're going to avoid anyone from not getting it.
Yeah, and I would be remiss not to just go back to what you were talking about with Alicia Baumgardner and her coach. I just want to take a moment to send my condolences to their entire family and team, and just our prayers. The entire boxing community are with you, and I know your promoter Marshall, is with you, and I just wanted to really extend that out to her and her team, and to the family of the coach. So that it's never a good moment when we lose someone from the boxing community.
100%. And there's other people that are in the boxing community that I knew personally. Eddie Cotton, who died.
Yes.
So you have a number of different people in the boxing community that have passed away from it, and the percentage of them are older.
Yeah.
Does it make it right?
No,
it doesn't make it right. But it's something that it almost. I think it's almost a warning sign to say, hey, get yourself healthy.
That's right. Right.
Try to be as healthy as you possibly can, and no matter what age you're in.
That's right. Which actually brings me to this crazy idea I had when I saw you hitting the bags. Because I don't know if folks out there, follow. If you don't follow, get on to King's Promotions on Facebook, Instagram, and all those social media platforms. But I saw one video of you hitting the bag. I was like, man, Marshall can crack. He's still got it. And I had this, so that's good, and it's good to see you working out and being super, super physical, and that's just great. I just encourage you to continue to do that. And what I wanted to say was, have you ever thought about getting together all of the managers, all of the promoters, all of the back office folks that are involved in boxing, and doing a really great charity event that just get in there and do 3 exhibition rounds or something, and just put together an entire card of all the people in the back office that you just would love to go a couple rounds with. Have you ever thought of that?
I think it would be awesome. I really do. I was joking with Rodney Rice, because I saw Rodney Rice hit the bag, and I said to him about him and I should do an exhibition. And so I think it would be awesome. I really do. I think it would be great. And it will also give those who are getting involved, those who would have to do those exhibitions, a purpose and a reason to get in shape, because let's face it, none of us want to get hit.
That's right.
None of us want to get hit. None of us want to get hurt.
Right.
So, and at our age, just a little body shot. The next day you have black and blues.
Yes.
And,
well, a couple black and blues kind of just keep you honest. Maybe we can get Everlast to make custom 25-ounce gloves for the crew.
Yeah, how about it? Yeah, 25 ounce, man. We're gonna have to make that. We're gonna have to make it a 1-round exhibition with 25 ounce.
Yeah, you'll be dragging like
right?
Frankenstein into the ring, right?
How about it?
So, a couple of things. I definitely. Do you have any sponsors or anyone that you'd like to shout out? Just to give a little shout out to. I'm looking at your roster of fighters, man, and Marshall. You have some very talented fighters on your promotion. Really, there's some got a great. A lot of people don't can't imagine that a someone who doesn't have television those fights are not happening. But when you look at the roster of fighters that you got, I mean, there's some really impressive fighters.
Two of the fighters on that roster alone were two that I had mentioned, Michael Fox and Lais and Lean. Those two, I think, are ready for a world championship.
Oh yeah,
now, top level fighters right now.
I think I just saw a fight the other night. It was a rebroadcast of a 2016 fight with Aleem, right? Was that the fight?
No, that was probably just not 2016. That would have just happened if it was.
Really?
That was this year, 2020.
Okay.
February 14th of 2020 was his first televised fight.
Got it. Okay.
And he went in again. And he went in against Adam Lopez from San Antonio, Texas.
Oh yeah.
And dominated him and stopped him.
Wow, stopped Adam Lopez.
He was the first one to stop him within, the one Danny Ramon stopped him, and Danny Ramon went on to become the world champion. Danny Ramon stopped him in 9 rounds.
Wow.
9 or 10 it was, and Rai stopped him in 4.
It's funny because I had Jorge Diaz Jr., the King, on last week, and we were talking about the Adam Lopez fight because he fought Adam Lopez and he was able to grab the WBC FECA super bantamweight title out of that. So
wow.
He was talking about it. It was a really great, a great cast, where he really went deep into his career and how he got into boxing, and it was a good one. So you've got some big fights. I saw that there's a you were scheduled on the March 14th fight.
Correct. We were scheduled to have a March 14th fight, which got canceled that morning of.
I know.
Due to the COVID-19.
And you know what? I was on my way up there. You know that, right? I was on my way up to see the fight the next day, and I saw that, and I was like, oh my goodness. Like that was a very, very difficult moment, I'm sure, for you.
It was. And then, I was looking forward to, as I do with all my fighters, I try to give them step ups.
Yep.
And I was looking forward to Jonathan Rodriguez, who's going to be fighting a step up.
Oh yeah.
With a tough kid. And then, I was also looking forward to the main event, which was really going to be a special, which was really going to be a special fight between, Anwar Yunusov and Martino Jules.
Yes. I can't wait to see that fight. That's that's on my list, man. That I really need to see that fight. So I can't wait till you can make that fight again, because I think it'll be a really good one.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I can't wait.
You also, we never really talked about that fight. I just want to compliment you on another matchup, that fight with Anthony Mercado and Victor Vasquez, who, people out there who haven't
to
seen...
me, if you would have asked me, I'm sorry, Mark, for interrupting you, but if you would have asked me what was the best fight I've ever seen,
yeah,
that still is my very best. And I've been to a lot of great fights. I've been to Gotti Ward.
Right.
I've been to a number of terrific fights live, but to this day, that's still the very best fight I've ever seen live.
And for those fans out there that don't, and people who are listening to the cast tonight, listen, don't go on Marshall's word. Go watch that fight, because honestly, you can actually go to King Promotions and you can actually purchase the fight right there, right?
Correct. It would be kingsboxing.com.
Yeah, kingsboxing.com. But you have to see this fight. It really is. It was one of my favorite fights, actually. Since that fight happened, I don't think I've seen quite a match that was as good as that. So,
right.
You're out. It was a great fight. Really great fight.
It was. It really was. And, during that, it was that type of fight that both guys needed some time off.
Yeah.
Both guys needed. They really did. They needed some time off. Mercado was ready to come back a little sooner than what Vasquez was.
Right.
But so it's one of those things. Almost like I've talked to a couple of people. Like right now with the pandemic going on, it's actually good for some fighters who have been in some tough fights, like Deontay Wilder for one. So they have time to rest. They have time to look at their career a little bit closer, and they have time to make adjustments in their training.
Right. And Travis too, Travis Kauffman. I mean, he had a very, very difficult fight against Luis Ortiz. And so didn't he just have surgery as well?
He had shoulder surgery, correct. So he had tore his labrum 5 weeks before the Ortiz fight, still fought through with it. And now he's
perfect
fighting again. Now he's fighting again August 8th on Showtime.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be a great fight. And for those folks out there that don't know, Travis Kauffman was trained by his pops, Marshall Kauffman, and he's quite a fighter. And you would be remiss to not check that out. Because when was the fight again?
The fight was December 1st of 2018.
Right.
And so he's been off a little over a year and a half.
Perfect. No, and for the shoulder and everything, that's just perfect. And now he's coming back in. When did you say? When's his fight?
August the 8th.
August the
8th on Showtime.
August the 8th on Showtime. Check it out, people. And so I have one more question for you before I let you go, okay? So this is a question that I really wanted to know, and so I put it in here. And that is, what have you learned not to do in boxing or promoting? What have you learned not to do? I know you know so many things of what to. When I work with the fighters, right, Marshall, one of the things I say is like, everybody knows what to do, but a lot of fighters don't know what not to do. They know what to do.
I guess if I'm just thinking, out loud here more.
Yeah,
the biggest thing that I've learned not to do is not to speak too soon.
Yeah.
And to be quick to listen and slow to speak, because sometimes you can give secrets away. Sometimes you can give too much away.
Yeah.
So if anything, to be slow to speak, be quick to listen and slow to speak.
Wow, that's incredible, incredible advice. So Marshall, I just want to acknowledge you for coming on the cast, and I thank you for being here. And it's been an absolute pleasure to spend this time with you. And I wish you and your family well, and all the fighters on King's Promotions. I wish everybody well, and I look forward to seeing you and being with you guys, and all of us getting together as a community again.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate it. And let's put our heads together and let's make that event happen where we're doing a fundraiser for a good cause.
You know what? Anytime I can help, anytime I can be there, if I can give you anything I can do to help to make something like that happen, I'd be all about it. So you got my full support.
You got it. Thanks again, Mark.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
And
have a great day.
Okay. And with that, folks, I want to thank you for listening in today. And I'll check you guys out on the other side. Peace and love.
Fight fans, join host Mark Roxey and special guests as they break down all aspects of the boxing world, including news, business, management, training, promotions, fan reactions, upcoming events, matchups, future boxing stars, title fights, state of the boxing world, and all the stuff you don't see when you watch boxing. This podcast is released each week on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Live streamed on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook Live. It's the Boxing Breakdown, hosted by Mark Roxey. Fight fans, join host Mark Roxey and special guests as they break down all aspects of the boxing world, including news, business, management, training, promotions, fan reactions, upcoming events, matchups, future boxing stars, title fights, state of the boxing world, and all the stuff you don't see when you watch boxing. This podcast is released each week on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Live streamed on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook Live. It's the Boxing Breakdown, hosted by Mark Roxey.